These massive dungeons are packed with monsters, magic items, and treasures worth a fortune, so explorers keep diving in hoping to get rich. The problem is, the deeper they go, the lower their chances of coming back. One group gets cornered by a pack of monsters, and just when one of them accepts he's about to die, a bolt of purple lightning wipes the beast out in one shot. The attack comes from a strange horn charged with electricity, leaving the survivors wondering what the hell just happened. A black-haired young man walks out carrying a huge cannon made from those monster pearls. After testing it, he decides the damage is worth the insane mana cost, and drops beside the two explorers. They immediately beg him to save them from the rest of the monsters, but he shuts them down. He only came to collect materials because he has to support his younger sister. Before the conversation goes anywhere, the two explorers panic, turn around, and sprint for their lives while begging him to help. Bro doesn't even flinch. Mana gathers in his hand, then a red blur shoots past the fleeing explorers. A second later, he's standing there with a massive sword covered in flames. He plants it in front of them and casually asks how much they're willing to pay. Back in his room, he looks at the weapon and admits using real magic is way cooler than he ever imagined. That's because these dungeons perfectly recreate the world of the MMO Fantasia Online. Somehow, everyone who played the game can use their character's abilities inside them, while modern weapons are completely useless. That instantly turns experienced players into the biggest powerhouses around. It all started when a mysterious cube suddenly appeared. Suma grabs it and gets back to work as a crafter, the game's only production class that almost everyone thought was useless. He places a metal ingot next to the cube and it instantly melts the metal down before forging it into a brand new sword. Looks like this thing isn't useless after all. Before he can admire it any longer, he gets a hologram call from his younger sister, Shika. The moment he answers, she desperately begs him to save her, so he immediately runs off to find her. While searching the dungeon, he suddenly hears a tiny voice calling his name. A frightened little fairy flies over and says she has no idea what happened because she somehow turned into a monster. She explains that she passed out while exploring the deeper floors, and when she finally woke up, she was trapped in this tiny body. Realizing the fairy is actually Shika, Suma carefully picks her up and uses his analysis skill to figure out what happened. Analysis is normally used to reveal crafting recipes for equipment and items, but it can also analyze players suffering from status effects and even show the recipe needed to cure them. Instead of getting an answer, the screen is filled with static. At first, Suma thinks analysis failed, but hidden inside the glitches is a single line revealing the only cure for Shika's transformation, the legendary Philosopher's Stone. The stone has several miraculous powers, and it can definitely turn her back to normal. The problem is, nobody has ever found one. Our guy already knows the crafting recipe, but every material it needs is incredibly rare. Since finding them himself isn't realistic, he'll have to buy them all, and the total comes to a staggering 100 million gold. That number is enough to make Bro lose all hope. He starts calling his crafter class completely useless, but Shika doesn't let him stay down for long. She reminds him they only found the cure because he became a crafter. If he'd picked any other class, they wouldn't even know how to save her. That snaps him out of it. This guy gently pats Shika's tiny head, thanks her, and makes up his mind. No matter how difficult it is, he's going to gather every material, craft the Philosopher's Stone, and turn her back to normal. Then he grins at his little sister and tells her she's coming with him whether she likes it or not. Shika doesn't hesitate for a second. She trusts her big brother more than anyone, so the two head to the mining area on the first floor, where beginner explorers gather to collect materials. On the way, she asks what he made with the materials from earlier. Our guy opens his inventory and proudly shows off a few mining bombs he crafted himself. A nearby party overhears them and immediately starts mocking him. Their leader, a mage named Ignis, laughs that only an idiot would pick the crafter class. The rest of the group joins in, saying it's their first time seeing one in real life. Bro doesn't even react. He's heard the same thing so many times it doesn't bother him anymore. Shika, on the other hand, starts calling the whole group idiots. Agnes looks at the tiny fairy in confusion and assumes she's just some pet monster. Eventually he gets fed up and swings his staff at her, but this guy catches it with one hand before it can land. Agnes is completely stunned that a crafter stopped his attack so easily. Then Bro looks up, and one cold glare is enough to make the mage freeze. He tells the group to get out of the way because they don't have time to waste on them. That only makes Agnes angrier. He starts casting a powerful spell and fires a blast of purple magic straight at our guy, triggering a massive explosion. Agnes figures he just wasted one of his strongest spells on a worthless crafter. Then the smoke clears, and our guy is still standing there without a scratch. Now the mage has no idea what just happened. Turns out Bro combined one of his mining bombs with a regular bottle of water, and crafted a water bomb with fire resistance on the spot. The item completely nullified the spell. Even he's impressed with the result, especially since he made it in the middle of the fight. Ignis, meanwhile, starts sweating. He can't believe a few cheap materials shut down one of his strongest attacks, so he activates analysis to check this guy's status. The moment the results appear, the mage freezes. His teammates look over and are just as stunned as more status windows pop up in front of them. Seeing their reaction, Bro just smiles and tells them he's nothing more than the ordinary crafter standing right in front of them. That answer only makes Ignis panic even more. He blurts out that this guy is level 999, the highest level anyone can possibly reach. Even his own teammates start wondering if their leader can actually win this fight. With nothing left to lose, Ignis pours all of his mana into his strongest spell. A massive magic circle spreads across the ground as he unleashes Earthbreaker, sending giant boulders crashing toward our guy. Bro weaves through every attack with ease, and when the spell finally ends, the entire area has been blown apart. Ignis starts bragging that he's mastered all 4 elements, but then a dark hole suddenly opens behind him. 2 glowing eyes appear inside it before a colossal red dragon crawls out. Looks like Earthbreaker just opened a path to the lower floors. The dragon immediately breathes a massive wave of fire. Ignis and his party have nowhere to run, so they're engulfed by the flames and thrown straight into the hole. Our guy quickly creates a water barrier to protect himself and Sheikah. She panics because she doesn't have the strength to fight anymore after becoming a fairy, but he only asks her to use Scout and find the dragon's weak point. Sheikah flies toward the monster while Bro casually avoids another blast of fire. Scout reveals several weak points across the dragon's body. After checking them, she finds the real one near the base of its tail. Sheikah points it out. Our guy rushes in, plants one of his mining bombs on the dragon's tail, and the explosion tears into the weak spot. A shining item immediately drops right in front of him. The surviving adventurers cannot believe it. The dragon ignored attacks to its eyes, yet Suma injured it with a single bomb. He picks up the dropped item and explains that all he needed was a critical hit on the monster's weak point. Suma activates Triplecraft and fuses several materials together. A bright light flashes before a brand new weapon appears. It is the Draconic Pile Bunker, a massive launcher built for overwhelming firepower. Suma charges straight toward the dragon and aims the weapon at its chest. He quietly apologizes before saying the battle is over. An empty shell flies out as the spear slams into the dragon's chest. The monster lets out a painful roar. The players watching from a distance are left speechless. Ignis suddenly cries out for help as he hangs over the edge of the hole. He says he has used all of his mana and has no way to save himself. Suma crafts a rope ladder, but agrees to help only if Ignis hands over every coin he has. Ignis immediately apologizes and gives Suma all of his money. Suma helps him climb back up before waving goodbye as the terrified mage runs away. With the battle finally over, Suma leans against a wall to rest. After waking up, he complains that crafter classes were never meant for direct combat. 2 explorers who watch the fight approach him. One of them offers 300,000 gold for the Draconic Pile Bunker. Surprised by the price, Suma asks if the weapon is really worth that much. The explorer explains the launcher has a plus 99 enhancement, something that should not even exist. He also reminds our guy this isn't a game anymore. People can actually die in the dungeons, so nobody wants to spend years grinding for gear. Once he hears that, Bro realizes the offer is way better than he thought, and sells the weapon on the spot. After adding the rescue reward and the sale, he ends up with 470,000 gold. That's a lot of money, but it's still nowhere close to what he needs for the Philosopher's Stone. The two head back to the city, and Sheikah happily celebrates how much they earned. Our guy tells her they can't keep making money by risking their lives in the dungeon. She reminds him they barely survived the dragon, but he just holds up his crafting cube, pulls out a sword, and reminds her they have something nobody else does: item crafting. Sheikah quickly realizes crafted equipment would be worth a fortune in the real world. Bro agrees, but says there's no point making cheap gear. They need to create something people are willing to pay crazy money for. Sheikah can't think of anything that valuable, but our guy just smiles and says they already know exactly where to find it. A little later, they arrive in front of a massive building. He pushes the giant doors open, and explains that more gold changes hands there than anywhere else in the Phantom Dungeons. As the doors slowly swing open, a bright light pours out from inside. The building turns out to be the biggest auction house in the dungeons, where rare treasures sell for ridiculous amounts of gold every day. Sheikah can't believe the prices as item after item goes for tens of thousands of gold. Even a pair of earrings sells for 90,000. Watching the auction, our guy smiles and says the real show is about to begin. The next item is a black shield called the Dark Aegis. Bidding starts at 100,000 gold and keeps climbing until a wealthy blonde woman wins it for 550,000. The moment it's sold, Bro tells Sheikah that's their next crafting target. If one shield can sell for that much, there has to be plenty of buyers who missed the auction. Instead of making just one, they can keep crafting them and sell them to everyone else. Just thinking about it puts a grin on his face. To craft the Dark Aegis, they need Dark Adamantite and Fire Dragon Blood. They already have a weaker version of the Dragon Blood from the boss they defeated, so the only thing left is Dark Adamantite, which can only be found on the second floor. Just as they're about to leave, our guy notices another way to make money. A few explorers have run out of mana and can't continue exploring, so he offers one of them a mana potion for 1,000 gold. The guy complains about the price, but with no other choice, he buys it anyway. After that first sale, Bro realizes plenty of other explorers are in the same situation. He starts pulling out all kinds of useful items and selling them one after another. When someone complains about the price of a trap disarming tool, he reminds them it's a lot cheaper than triggering a deadly trap. Before long, the explorers are competing to buy his items before they sell out, and a huge crowd gathers around our guy's little shop. Sheikah suddenly spots something racing through the hallway and warns our guy. A pack of wolves with flames covering their backs comes charging straight at the explorers, sending everyone into a full-on panic. Bro notices them a little too late. He grabs all his merchandise and takes off before he becomes dinner, but the wolves stay right on his tail. Sheikah tells him to fight, but there are too many of them. If he uses a big attack, he could end up hitting her too. The chase finally ends at a dead end. With nowhere left to run, our guy pulls out his crafting cube. If he can't escape, he'll just have to wipe them out. A giant hammer appears in his hands, and he points out that in a narrow hallway, numbers don't matter. One hit is enough. The hammer slams into the ground, unleashing a blue shockwave that tears to a corridor and one-shots every wolf. He quickly checks that Sheikah is safe, but then the ground starts shaking. Cracks spread beneath their feet as the whole hallway begins collapsing. Turns out his attack was so strong it destroyed the floor too. Before Bro can do anything, the ground gives way and he drops straight into the darkness. After a long fall, he lands on a pile of broken rocks. Looking back up through the hole, he realizes using that attack was a terrible idea. Without the dungeon's HP system, that fall would have killed him. Then it hits him that Ignis made the exact same mistake earlier. A moment later, Sheikah flies down to check on him, and our guy jokes that the HP system saved his life again. The little fairy looks around, wondering where they ended up. Our guy pulls out his crafting cube and makes a magic lantern, revealing an ancient laboratory hidden beneath the dungeon. The place is covered in metal walls and advanced technology that looks nothing like the rest of the dungeon. Bro immediately recognizes it as one of the ancient ruins from the game. Then Sheikah spots something nearby and calls him over. The moment he sees it, he stops in his tracks. A gigantic robot is lying in the middle of the room with all of its systems powered down. Our guy instantly recognizes it as Grand Wynon Eve, one of the strongest Grand Wynon raid bosses in the entire game. After realizing what it is, he remembers this boss is famous for dropping incredibly valuable loot. Even though Sheikah tells him to be careful, Bro climbs onto the machine to inspect it. While looking around, he finds a glowing green button on its armor and presses it. The robot suddenly roars to life with loud mechanical noises. Our guy quickly jumps back as a hatch opens and steam pours out from inside. He immediately tells Sheikah to stay behind him. A bright green light starts shining through the smoke. As it clears, a humanoid figure slowly steps out of the machine. It's a beautiful mechanical doll with cables hanging from her back, and her eyes are still peacefully closed. A peaceful day at home has somehow turned into maid duty. A young woman in a maid outfit is cleaning every corner of the house while complaining that her new master is way too messy. Somehow, that just makes her job more satisfying. Meanwhile, our guy can only stare at Sheikah, wondering how his life ended up like this. The story flashes back to the moment they found the android. The giant machine disconnects from the cables attached to it, and the humanoid core drops onto the floor. Bro explains that Grand Wynon Eve is a unique raid boss. The giant robot is just the outer shell. The real body is the humanoid core hidden inside it. The mechanical girl slowly stands up, and our guy gets ready for another brutal fight. He immediately pulls out his crafting cube. Instead of attacking, Eve scans his player information and calmly registers him as her new master. That announcement leaves both our guy and Sheikah completely speechless. Back in the present, Bro explains that Eve somehow forgot she was supposed to be an enemy boss. Instead, she followed them home and started working as their maid. She's determined to leave the house spotless, stacking heavy metal ingots, cleaning up the books scattered across his desk, and taking care of every mess she finds. Sheikah happily points out that her brother really is a slob, and our guy immediately tells the two of them to stop talking behind his back. Eve politely asks everyone to call her by her name, which only confuses our guy even more. Somehow, this former raid boss has completely flipped their lives upside down. After giving up on figuring it out, Bro tells Eve to stay home and watch the house while he and Sheikah head back to the dungeon for the materials needed to craft the Dark Aegis. Eve gives them a respectful bow and wishes them a safe trip before they leave. On the way back through the dungeon, our guy keeps wondering why Eve suddenly started acting like a normal maid. After thinking it over, he comes up with a possible answer. The Grand Wynon robots were originally created to serve an ancient princess, and Eve was her personal maid. If she lost her memories after waking up, going back to that role would actually make sense. For now, Bro decides to stop worrying about it. Getting the materials for the Dark Aegis comes first. As they continue deeper into the dungeon, he spots a large group of explorers. One of them is a familiar face. He calls out to a man in silver armor and recognizes him as the paladin player Oliver. One of Oliver's teammates asks if they know each other. Oliver says he remembers this guy as the weirdo who maxed out a useless crafter class. Bro immediately insists he had a good reason for picking it. Another explorer laughs that he basically admitted he's weird, but Oliver quickly shuts everyone down. He warns them never to underestimate a crafter like our guy, because his base stats are high enough to beat everyone there before they could even react. That warning is enough to leave the rookie explorers covered in cold sweat. Just then, a little witch asks if the two of them are actually friends. Both of them answer at the exact same time, insisting they barely know each other. Oliver then asks where Sheikah is, and our guy simply points behind him as the little fairy quietly peeks out from his back. Our guy introduces the little fairy as his sister. Oliver says it's hard to believe, but seeing her turn into a weak little monster does explain it. He jokes that the only other explanation is that Bro lost his mind and decided to keep a fairy as a pet. Our guy immediately threatens to sue him for defamation. Oliver laughs it off and starts heading deeper into the dungeon. He's busy training his new teen on the lower floors, but before leaving, he brings up the 100 million gold needed to save Sheikah. He says earning that much money for one little girl has to be brutal. Then he remembers Suma once telling him they aren't related by blood, yet he's still willing to do anything to save her. Bro just smiles. As far as he's concerned, there's no reason he'd ever abandon Sheikah. He gently squishes her tiny cheek and proudly calls her his precious little sister. Sheikah immediately starts yelling and struggles to get free. That takes us back to Suma's childhood. After losing both of his parents, a young Suma is left crying alone in front of their graves with no relatives to take him in. Everything changes when a transparent umbrella suddenly appears over his head. He looks up and sees Sheikah's parents standing in front of him. They were close friends of his parents and couldn't leave him all alone, so they decided to adopt him and welcome him into their family. They grew up playing together, made countless happy memories, and before long, carrying her around on his back became part of everyday life. The story jumps back to the present when Bro hears Sheikah calling his name. The two keep moving deeper into the cave until they run into a group of giant poisonous lizards. Bro figures he can deal with the normal ones, but then he spots a massive purple mutant. He recognizes it immediately as a monster on a completely different level, one that even Oliver would have trouble fighting. While watching the mutant, they notice one of Oliver's rookie teammates collapsed on the ground. The explorer has been poisoned, and even healing magic can't cure it. Sheikah begs our guy to save the injured explorer, but he knows they can't make an antidote without the right materials. All he can do is give the rookie a health potion to ease the pain. The poison is so bad the guy can't even answer any questions, which tells Bro something must have happened to Oliver's team. If they want answers, they'll have to go down themselves. The only way forward is a huge pit lined with rope ladders. While our guy climbs down, Sheikah flies ahead to scout the area. She quickly comes back after finding the entire cave covered in thick purple poison mist. She couldn't find Oliver or any of the other rookies either. Bro figures Oliver is probably still alive since his purification skills can deal with poison. But after looking into the cave, he realizes fighting that mutant inside the mist would be a death sentence. Sheikah suggests finding dark adamantite somewhere else, but our guy points toward the rocks around a river of lava and says wandering around the dungeon without a plan is even riskier. The safest option is to sneak past the mutant, grab the dark adamantite, and get out before it notices them. Sheikah asks how they're supposed to get through the poisonous mist. Instead of answering, our guy suddenly reaches toward the little fairy with a grin and pulls out a pair of tweezers. Before she can figure out what's going on, he's already borrowed a few of her fairy scales. Sheikah immediately starts freaking out, but Bro just holds up a small flask and explains that fairy dust is one of the best protective materials in the game. He activates his crafting cube, combines the materials, and creates a protective scarf. After wrapping it around his face, our guy explains that it won't cure poison, but it can block the effects of the toxic mist filling the cave. Looking down at the purple fog, he realizes the situation is even worse than he expected. Sheikah hides safely inside the scarf while Bro gets ready to move. Since she has the best view, he asks her to guide him through the cave, and she immediately takes the lead. Just then, a loud crash echoes through the cave. Our guy turns toward the crash just in time to see Oliver getting launched out of the poisonous mist. The paladin slams across the ground and barely stops himself with his shield. Even he's surprised by how powerful that attack was. A second later, the giant purple mutant walks out of the fog and roars right in front of the injured paladin. It immediately swings its massive tail, and Oliver barely blocks the hit with his shield. That's when he notices Bro standing nearby. It's embarrassing getting caught like this, but he has bigger problems. He immediately calls for help. Oliver explains that the only way to make a proper antidote is by taking the poison gland from the mutant itself. Our guy lets out a sigh and reminds him the party's maid should be able to make one instead. Oliver silently points toward the side. Every rookie on his team is already down after breathing in the poisonous mist. The veteran begs Bro to save them. He can't let those kids die and promises to pay whatever price our guy asks. The moment bro hears the word payment, his attitude changes instantly. He immediately summons his crafting cube and accepts the deal. Finally knowing help is on the way, Oliver lets out a sigh of relief. Even while struggling to hold back the mutant, he thanks our guy and prepares to keep the monster busy. Oliver activates one of his defensive skills just as the giant mutant comes charging in with its massive claws. The paladin holds his ground and blocks every attack head-on. The lizard quickly realizes that isn't enough. Its giant red eye begins glowing before it fires a concentrated blast of poisonous energy straight at him. Oliver refuses to move. Instead, he activates his strongest barrier. A massive blue shield appears in front of him and collides with the poison blast, setting off an explosion that shakes the entire cave. Using the explosion as an opening, the paladin leaps into the air and slams his glowing mace straight into the mutant's face. Before it can recover, our guy follows up by throwing a strange glowing device right at it. Watching the whole thing, our guy can't help but grin. He tells the monster to enjoy the little gift, because that glowing gadget is actually a powerful flashbang. The flashbang goes off right in front of the giant lizard's face, flooding the cave with light and leaving the monster completely disoriented. Oliver doesn't waste the opening, and keeps hammering it while it struggles to recover. Knowing this is their chance, our guy slips away with Sheikah to make the antidote. As they leave, Oliver yells that he's counting on him. The plan falls apart almost immediately. Oliver suddenly notices a massive shadow overhead, but by the time he looks up, the mutant's tail is already coming down. He doesn't even get a chance to dodge before it slams him straight into the ground. A second later, the monster's red eye starts glowing again. The flashbang has already worn off. That's when Sheikah warns Bro that the mutant found them. He already knows. The explosions flash. Our guy immediately reaches for his crafting cube, but before he can make anything, the lizard fires another blast of poisonous energy. It hits his hand, interrupts his crafting, and knocks him back. As the monster's shadow looms over them, Sheikah screams. Just when our guy and Sheikah think it's over, a bolt of lightning crashes down from above and slams the giant mutant straight into the ground. As the dust clears, a woman with glowing eyes appears floating above the defeated monster. The moment Bro sees her, he quietly calls out Eve's name.